Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? The New Orleans Saints have scheduled a visit with Florida State wide receiver Keon Coleman. It'll be one of their pre-draft visits. Coleman is a guy that we've talked about a lot. A lot of you know his backstory. Coleman's from Opelousas. He was a Tulane commit, and then Michigan State came in. And Michigan State came in late. It was his only Power 5. And so he flipped, went to Michigan State, and ended up being a two-sport guy at Michigan State. Played both football and basketball. Well, after a successful couple seasons at Michigan State, transfer portal, all that good stuff, he goes to Florida State, and we know that he had two really good years at Florida State. LSU got to see it firsthand. Probably none better at Florida State than the season opener this year, where he kind of went off. For the season, went off for 50 catches, 658 yards, 11 touchdowns. And Coleman was this guy at 6'3", big, strong receiver who was in everybody's mock drafts as an early round pick and seemed to be a guy that was going to be a lock as a first rounder. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that Mel Kiper is the be-all, end-all, but he's a guy that everyone knows, and so his opinion is one that a lot of people look at and trust. Mel Kiper's mock draft back on January 23rd, so this was Kiper's 1.0, like the first mock draft he put out on January 3rd, had Keon Coleman 15 overall to the Indianapolis Colts. And some mock drafts have had him even higher than that. But the next mock draft that Kiper did after the Super Bowl, kind of as we started going through the draft process, remember, mock draft 1.0 had him at 15. Mock draft 2.0 had him at, this was on February 28th, had him at 26 to the Bucs. So 15 in January, 26 in February, and now in the post-combine mock draft, not in round one, has him as the 8th best receiver overall in this draft. So, look, if New Orleans were looking at a receiver at 14, Keon Coleman wouldn't be in play. There are just very clearly receivers that are going to be higher in the pecking order. And so much of this fall, I guess we could call it, air quotes, fall. I mean, a lot of that is really just based on what the draft pundits and perspectives are. I mean, you never know. A team could fall in love and think Keon Coleman's the best receiver in the draft and take him high. And we saw the Saints take Peyton Turner in round one and trade up to take Marcus Davenport. Like, it just takes one team to fall in love with you. So you all know that that's the caveat. So when I say fall, it's the perceived fall. But it was when he went and ran 4.61 at the combine. He went and ran 4.61, and his draft stock fell. And a lot of the pundits and analysts sort of fell out of love with Keon Coleman. Or maybe a better way to say it is a guy like Brian Thomas took over that spot. You saw other receivers, Xavier Worthy, sort of leapfrog Keon Coleman because of their performances and how they ran. So all that to say, Coleman is not going to very likely be a target at 14. Plus, I don't think the Saints should be looking receiver at 14. To be very clear, the Saints have so many needs that I would be good with almost any position at 14. Like, if there were a no-doubt, no-brainer, slam-dunk receiver at 14, okay. Like if Malik Neighbors for some reason fell or Roma Dunze fell, great. If Brock Bowers is there at 14, I'm with it. You know my feeling. I think the Saints need to be looking offensive line because I think there is going to be a glut of offensive linemen that are going to be available. They're going to fall because you're very likely going to have 4 or 5 quarterbacks taken before the Saints pick, which is going to push really good players. You need interior defensive line help. You need edge rushers. You're old at linebacker. You could certainly look to get younger there. I know they just signed Willie Gay, and we'll see if that's an option beyond this season. Safety is a very clear need. You understand my point? Like, the Saints could go so many different directions at 14, and I could feel really good about it because it feels like they're going to get great value there. I just feel like in a deep receiver draft, when you look outside of round one, you're still going to get an awesome talent. And maybe Keon Coleman is that guy. I mentioned Pro Football Focus. They ranked their receivers for this year's draft. They didn't have Keon Coleman inside the top 10 receivers in this year's draft. So I kind of look at New Orleans with their round 2 pick at 45 and go, would that make sense? My best case, as I've told you before, is Olu Fashanu. If the offensive tackle from Penn State is there, who is a top 10 caliber talent, would have been a top 10 caliber talent a year ago, went back to school. Now he comes into this draft that's going to be so top heavy with quarterbacks and other elite offensive linemen like Joe Alt, J.C. Latham. That could push a guy who's a top 10 grade, maybe in the middle of round 1. You could get a steal there. That's my best case. So if you get your offensive lineman at 14 and you're sitting there at 45 and someone like Keon Coleman is there at 45, that feels like a steal for me. And yes, the Saints have got to add receivers to this room. I mean, we've gone over last week when we talked about the Odell Beckham conversation. And again, if you missed it, Bill Barnwell at ESPN looked at like the top remaining free agents and where their best fit might be. And he labeled Odell Beckham his best fit in New Orleans. And so we did the pros and cons list. And quite honestly, I think a younger receiver like Keon Coleman on a rookie deal is a better option than maybe like 1 year with Odell Beckham, despite all the tug on your heartstrings that you'd love to see Odell going to his hometown and playing in New Orleans. If you told me I could get 1 year of Odell Beckham, or I could get Keon Coleman at pick 45, give me Keon Coleman on a 4-year, second-round rookie deal that's going to be affordable, because that's the way. Like, that is the way this team can push the reset button, is if they nail the draft. You nail the draft, and you get all of these starting caliber players on rookie deals. That's how you reset. Like, that's what they did in 2017 when you hit on Lattimore and Ramchick and Marcus Williams and Alvin Kamara and Trey Hendrickson and Michael Thomas the year before. You hit on all of these draft picks, then all of a sudden you had a team full of starters on rookie deals. And that's what it's going to take here for New Orleans to be able to reset with their cap situation. So, I mean, that or you just tank. So, and I don't think they're going to do that. So I think you're looking for great value in this draft. And I think you're going to get it on the offensive line at 14, and I think you're going to have a great option for a top receiver at 45. The other thing worth keeping in mind, in this draft, the Saints have 4 fifth-round picks. 4 fifth-round picks and 2 sixes. So they don't have a pick in round 3 or 4 this year. And you know the Saints are not standing pat waiting to pick 4 players in round 5. It's just not going to happen. So they're going to package picks to move up into round 3 and or 4 when they see some value on the board. I mean, I'll remind you, they traded up into round 3 to take Alvin Kamara back when they did in 2017. So there's going to be value in this draft. That's what the Saints are going to be hunting. It's not going to be numbers. It's not going to be volume. It's going to be value. And Keon Coleman in round 2 would feel like great value. And that might just be a guy who's lurking around at 45 when the Saints pick. So much of the draft, though, is when a certain position, there's a run on a certain position. And we know the top receivers are going to come off the board. We know Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze and Brian Thomas are all going to come off the board in round 1. When does the second run on receivers come? And how long does it take for Keon Coleman to come off the board? That's very well a guy who could be on the board at 45. And if he is, I mean, don't just like run the card up to the podium and throw it at the commissioner and get Keon Coleman on a plane to New Orleans, because that in round 2 would feel like a steal. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.